You are listening to the Moreno Conde Show on Silla Media. It is 9 minutes past 11 on this Monday, the 14th of December 2020. So we started this trend of breaking the silence and sharing stories of the victims of sexual violence, domestic violence, and any forms of abuse. And Alhamdulillah, we've had the victims, survivors rather. We call them survivors because that's exactly what they are. We've had survivors come forward and share their stories with us and give us hope and encouragement, and to those who are listening as well, to give them just a few words of encouragement to let them know that you got this. Even if you were in a similar situation, you got this, and God got you too. Joining me on the line is Amore Samira Jooste, who is going to be sharing her story with us, and also breaking the silence on gender-based violence and sexual assault. Assalamu alaikum, Samira.
Walaikum assalam, Miriam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, all well in yourself?
I'm good, thanks.
All right, Samira, please start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
I, I'm a mother of two. I reside in Centurion. I also work for a hotel group in Johannesburg. And yeah, what more would you like to know?
All right. Okay. Now let's get into the gist of it all, into this entire ordeal and what happened. And for those who are listening, I'd just like to say that if you are sensitive to the information that Samira will be sharing, please do not listen. Because we would not like to trigger anything for our listeners. I mean, such incidences are triggers. If you have been through it in your childhood or in your teens or in your young adulthood, whenever it is, it can be a trigger. So, Samira, you were 15 when everything changed. And tell us about what happened.
Yeah, so it actually started from the age of 10. I was
Mm,
sexually molested by my stepfather over a period of time. I When I went to high school, I was in hostel and I never wanted to go home during school holidays because I didn't want to be at home where he could do more harm to me.
mm,
And I told my mother. My mother never believed me when I said to her what was going on. They thought that I was just making up stories
yeah.
and that I was looking for attention. And it got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't live with it anymore. And I was in grade 9 and it was December holidays and I had to leave the hostel again because the hostel closed for the school holidays. And I ran away from home because I just didn't want to be there. So I got labeled as being a difficult child, being a problem child because I ran away from home, but no one really believed me.
Mm,
Um, it took me a long while to actually deal with it. I think it's about 2 years ago that I went for counseling to a psychologist. I did go in previous years, but it didn't help me. I
yeah.
think I was not ready to really deal with it. Um, and when I went to the psychologist 2 years ago, I had to go dig deep, and open up those chapters or part of my life that I didn't really want to open up.
Mm-hmm.
And I I then realized, and for a number of years, for nearly 20 years, I lived with this. I don't want to. I can't really call it with guilt, but I felt that it was my fault, and that um, everything that happened was my fault, and it wasn't my fault. But for 20 years, the emotional damage it caused me, I'm still trying to fix it. And
Mm-hmm.
I went to go and confront my stepfather. He's obviously not my stepfather anymore, but I went to go and confront him, and he didn't even show any remorse. He made it again seem like it was my fault, like I was looking for it. I mean, why? How would a 10-year-old little girl go and look for it? Yeah, so my family also didn't know about it. I kept it a secret, but now they know about it, and I feel much better that it's out in the open and that everyone knows about it. I felt ashamed to talk about it, but I realized that if I'm not going to talk about it, then more and more other women and other men as well, men also get sexually abused,
Yes.
that people are just going to keep quiet about it, and we shouldn't keep quiet about it. You should talk about it, and you should warn people and try and work through that pain and that trauma. If we're not going to do it, it's going to affect your whole life going forward. It stays with you, and we need to try and deal with it. As much as it hurts, it's not easy, but it gets better. Definitely, it gets better.
Samira, I'd like to know, how did it affect you mentally and physically? But hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break and we'll continue when we return.
Okay.
Yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal's Breakfast Club aim to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend the day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner by visiting our website on www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Freedom Stationery supply Marlin and Marlin Kids pens to me and my school friends. They supply just about everything we need to help us get a better education, from books to files to rulers. In fact, any access or any accessory we need. Freedom Stationery. Education for the nation. What does accessory mean?
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Mari Mukonda Show on Salam Media, and I have Samira Jooste on the line sharing her story with us and breaking the silence of sexual violence, rape, gender-based violence as well. 16 days of activism may be over, but the epidemic that we are facing as a country still continues. And what are we doing about it? Well, we are here continuing with the fight and raising awareness that this still continues and will probably still continue unless we talk about it and unless we shed light on the issues and that it can affect absolutely anyone. Samira, thank you for staying on the line. And before the break, I asked you, how did it affect you physically and mentally, especially knowing that this was somebody whom you knew, this was somebody whom you looked up to, it was another parent to you, and yet they happened to do such a terrible thing to you, take your innocence away as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, emotionally and physically, it did take a big toll on me. I still have trust issues today, and trusting is I don't really trust people, especially after what's been done, and being a close family member as well. But I'm working through that. But for a number of years, I felt like my body was dirty. I felt dirty all the time, and I would stand in, like when I shower, I would scrub myself with a hot brush because I just felt dirty and I wanted to get this dirty feeling off from me. It's not easy, and I lost respect for myself. I lost respect for my body, and I just felt that I'm just there for people to use me. And only now that I went for the therapy, it's really helped me to regain myself and get my self-confidence back as well. Yeah, I didn't feel good for a number of years growing up. And
And
yeah, I did feel like it took my innocence away from me. I would always look at my friends and how they would grow up, and inside me, I had to live with this, with all of this that was happening to me, and I couldn't share it with anybody. After I told my mom and she didn't believe me, I didn't bother to tell anybody else what happened because I just assumed that they're also not going to believe me. And I left it, and I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have kept quiet. And there are so many young girls that this is happening to, and especially being done by close family members. It's shocking. If all these women are going to start talking up, it's really, really shocking. And I want girls and women to talk about it. They must speak up. They shouldn't keep quiet. We're always worried about our family's name and the respect that our family has and the status of our families and communities. But you need to speak up because they're going to keep on doing it. He just didn't do it to me. When I ran away from home, he started doing it to my sister. And that's only when my mom believed it. When my sister told my mom that he's doing it to her as well, that's only when she believed it. And she got divorced from him, but they continue doing it. They don't just stop. So if we are not going to talk and we're going to put a stop to it, they're going to do it more, and they're going to destroy young girls and women's lives. I can't go back and change things. I really wish I could, um, but I can't. I can't.
wow, in situations like this,
Yeah.
it's so sad, especially when your parents, your mother in particular, does not believe you when you try to speak to her about it, and um, you know such things are happening in a lot of families, and it takes for for this to happen to somebody else in the family. That's when they decide, okay, perhaps she was telling the truth indeed, and she was not lying. So when you take us back to when you ran away from home, where did you stay, and where did you get help and support from? uh, uh, Samira, your mic is on mute. Please unmute your mic. No, I still can't hear you. There's a little button on the left hand side. Well, there's a tap. Oh, all right. It's unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I had friends that was with me in school, and their parents took me in, and they let me stay with them. Even during that time that I was with them, my mom still labeled me as just being a problem child and being a difficult child. So they took care of me, and after a few years, I came to Pretoria and started rebuilding my life here.
And how long did it take for you to get help? I know you said that you went for therapy, but it's only 2 years ago when you re-went for the therapy. That's when things started getting better.
Yeah, so I'm 36 now, and only at the age of 33 did I go for therapy. Because I was always too scared. I just didn't want to deal with the pain and the trauma, and it took a lot for me to go to him and confront him, and that he still denied everything and made it out or made it seem like I was looking for it, or I was leading him on, I was flirting with him. It made me upset. I mean, how can a 10-year-old girl flirt or be flirtatious with an adult man? Um,
Imagine.
it made me upset, and I grew up in the I grew up in Zanin area. I drove there to go back to the places of where it took place and where he did these things to me. And as I was walking around there, it made me sick that into old buildings that were in the bushes, and where nobody could hear anything or nobody could see anything. And it was very, very difficult for me to go back to those places. But while I was walking there, I I just realized that I was a little girl. I was a little girl that he took into the bushes. He took me into these old buildings where nobody could see or hear anything, and just carry on like life was normal, like nothing happened. And they don't care. They don't care what damage they caused to your life. No, they don't care. But for a number of years, I allowed him to control me, and I'm no longer allowing that. I'm not going to let him win this round anymore. He's got no control over me, and I'm not going to let him win this round again.
Yes, take back your power.
Yeah.
And well, Samira, I commend you for your courage and for coming forward to share your story with us and our listeners and viewers. And so, what happened to him? Is he continuing with his life? Is he spending time behind bars, or has this been reported? What is it with him?
He's still carrying on with his life. I didn't go and report it, but he needs to live with that. He needs to live with his conscience, and he's going to have to answer for that one day. From my side, I'm happy that I finally spoke about it and that I dealt with it. It's really made a big, big difference in my life. Um, yeah, he's got to answer for those questions one day, and he's got to live with his conscience.
What advice would you like to give to our listeners and viewers, especially those who were in a similar situation as yours and are struggling to get through it?
Please don't ever keep quiet about it. Speak up about it. Lots of family members will say, even if family members will hear about it, they'll say, no, please keep quiet, don't do anything about it, don't go and report it. It's going to make our family name bad, or people are going to start thinking wrong about us. They emotionally blackmail you and tell you all these things that you think it's the right thing to just keep quiet and ignore it. Don't ignore it and don't keep quiet. People like that don't deserve to be in a society, because they are going to do it to more and more girls, and men as well. Men also get abused. Um, Speak up about it. Go and report them. It might seem very frightening to do it alone, because you're gonna feel like you are doing it alone. But in the end, you are doing it for yourself. You need to stand up for yourself. And if you're not going to stand up for yourself, no one is going to do that for you. And the fear will eventually subside. I've got a quote that I live by, and I allowed my fear to control me for for over 20 years. And I now don't allow my fear to control me. I dance with my fear. So I decide with what am I going to do with it? Am I going to allow that fear to keep me quiet and to have a hold over my life, or am I going to take charge of my life? And I really want women out there to talk. There is help out there. Don't feel ashamed. It is not your fault. Don't ever think that it's your fault. No matter what people will say, it is never your fault if somebody abuses you, somebody sexually abuses you, if you are being raped. It is not your fault, ever. That's about the only advice I can give. And there's so many foundations out there that do assist women with this. If you feel that you can't do it with your family, contact one of these foundations and start. Once you start seeking the help, every little step that you take towards that will make a it will definitely make a difference.
It definitely will make a difference. And I like that you mentioned that you need to dance with your fear. It's not easy to come forward and to talk about it, but when you are ready and just take the step, take the first step, and tell someone. It doesn't even have to be your mother, but tell someone, so that that will be the first step in recovering. And another pattern that I see is that sexual assault and rape usually happens from someone you know, someone whom you grow up with. It's usually a person that you know, and many women and men, young men, older men who have been affected by this can come forward and say that I was violated as a child by someone whom I knew. It was my cousin, it was my aunt, my uncle, whomever, but it's always someone whom you know. And there is a pattern. It's not always in a dark alley, behind a corner, in a club, in a wherever, but it will definitely start at home from someone whom you know. Samira, I'd like to commend you for coming forward
Yeah.
to share your story with us, and for your courage, and for being an overcomer and a survivor as well. Shukran so much for your time.
Thank you for having me on your show. And to all the listeners out there, there is help out there. There is help out there. Please don't keep quiet and don't ever think it's your fault. It's not your fault. Thank you so
Definitely
much.
isn't. Have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum. That was Samira Jooste sharing her story with us and breaking the silence on gender based violence, sexual assault, and rape. There is help out there. So if you are going through a similar situation, please do not keep quiet, do not keep it to yourself. It's not easy. Many of us have been affected by this year, and trust me, it is not easy to come forward and to talk about your ordeal, but you need to start somewhere. You need to talk to someone so that you don't die in silence and you don't die inside. It will affect you mentally, it will affect you physically, it will affect you emotionally for a while, but eventually you will be able to get through it. You don't get over it. You don't just get over something like this year, but you get through it. And with the help and the support, you will get through it. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section or send them to us on WhatsApp. The number is 0617 660 355. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after the break.